Open Door is the podcast multifamily owners, builders, and developers turn to for insights, ideas, and identifying solutions. You don't want to miss the latest episode. Welcome to Open Door by Cox Communities, a show dedicated to bringing you the latest information, hottest trends, and newest technologies for you to consider when making decisions for your multifamily communities. Hi, I'm your host, Valerie Sargent. And today we're discussing innovative strategies for improving digital equity in the world of affordable housing. I'm excited to have two amazing guests with me. First, we have Courtney Anderson, who leads the Connect program within the Phoenix Housing Department in Arizona. Since partnering with Cox in July of 2024, Courtney and her team have helped over 3,000 households receive free internet. Joining us as well is someone who has worked closely with Courtney, Director of Cox Communities Arizona, Marnie Peterson. Marnie brings an incredible amount of experience in affordable housing and has been with Cox Communities for over 20 years. Together, they'll help us understand how to improve digital equity in affordable housing, what it takes to get a program up and running, and share some incredible success stories. So get ready for an engaging and informative conversation. Welcome, Courtney and Marnie. Thanks so much for being our guests today.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to have you both here. So, Courtney, I'd like to get started with you, if you don't mind. And can you give us some background about your role and the work that you do at the Phoenix Housing Department?
Yeah, sure. I've been with the City of Phoenix Housing Department since 2019. And I came in with a community engagement background through nonprofit work all these years. And so throughout the last couple of years, I have been able to be a part of the Phoenix Housing Connect program with the Housing Department. And I'm very excited to share all about it today. I also, besides leading the Phoenix Housing Connect program, I also work on a program called Choice Neighborhoods on a planning effort for the Marcos Denisa community.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you.
Thank
So,
you.
Marnie, could you share a little bit about your role and your background and how you collaborate with Courtney?
Absolutely. I've been with Cox Communications for 22 years, with the bulk of that spent in the business-to-business space. I joined Cox Communities in the Arizona market. I'm the director of the Arizona market 3 years ago and met Courtney shortly thereafter. Courtney had come to my team and let us know that she had applied for and received some grants, and she wanted to utilize those to provide internet to low-income communities within the Valley. So we began working together a couple of years ago and finally got it up and over the goalpost.
So exciting. So, Courtney, I'd love it if you could go ahead and tell our listeners about the internet program your department launched last July along with Cox.
Sure. Before I share that, I should share that the Phoenix Housing Connect program was created during the pandemic of 2020, really to answer and address the need for many of our public housing, our affordable housing families, our seniors, to stay connected kind of during the scariest times. So in the last several years, we've had the opportunity to distribute over 3,300 devices with T-Mobile service. T-Mobile is also a great partner of ours. And when it came to the opportunity to work with Cox, we had been hearing a lot of feedback from our community members about their needs in their households. A lot of the needs fall around internet connectivity. It's one of the first bills that go when families are looking to cut back. And so hearing from community members how important it is that they stay connected, we started looking into what are our options. A lot of our residents use Cox, and so that was kind of the first place we started. And we were very lucky to be able to work out a plan with Marnie and her team to provide good internet too. They get 250 megabytes unlimited data, and the residents are very, very pleased with our program that we're being able to offer. Currently, we're distributing, we're doing these rollout projects at all the sites, and we're doing 33 affordable and senior housing sites. That equals to over 3,700 units. So 3,700 families individuals, seniors, families with school-aged children, working adults will be able to be connected with internet in their home.
All right there in the Phoenix area too.
And within the Phoenix area, so all of our properties are within the city of Phoenix, and it's 33 affordable properties and public housing properties.
That's fantastic. Did you have anything else you wanted to add there?
Yes, I was going to share that the need I've really found while we're doing these rollouts at the properties, we've been surveying our residents, and it turns out that under 50%, just under, don't have internet, home internet in the home. So they either are relying on cellular data on a cell phone, or just over 40% do not currently have home internet in the home.
That's shocking to think about those numbers today, because so many people rely on the internet for different things. So, Marnie, I'd be curious how you approach a program like this when it comes to budgeting. Obviously, we're dealing with affordable housing here, so you obviously have a limited budget to work with. How do you approach making the most out of every dollar?
So, it's about partnership and direct communication, and we have had great experiences with both, with Courtney and her team. They came to us with, they were very upfront about, this is how much money we have. We want to make it go as far as we possibly can. Cox Cox is a wonderful place to work because everybody really leans in. So we had our finance team, our leadership team, our operations team. Everybody really leaned in to take a peek at what they had, what their goal was, and we put together a program that would work for them, to maximize internet in all of these communities.
Is this the first time you've done one of these types of programs?
This is my first, but I hope it's not my last.
Oh, I love that. So, Courtney, let's step back in the time machine a little bit and go back 5 years ago when the world was experiencing the COVID pandemic. That was a big line of demarcation as far as when it comes to digital equity, and it brought a lot of things to light. How did the pandemic affect the world of digital equity, and what was different before versus during and afterward?
I think there's always been an equity issue, but I think but with the pandemic, there was like a spotlight on what were the major issues that our communities face when it comes to access, inclusion. And so we realized very quickly that we had a major problem, especially within our housing sites. We had some of the public housing where specifically I was working in a community called Edison East Lake Community. And several of the public housing sites weren't even wired for Cox. They couldn't have Cox. And as many know, Cox has a lot of really great programs for low income families, for families with children, for seniors. That's not available in some of the other providers. And so we were finding that a lot of our community members were being sent home, or sent home from work. The youth was being sent home from school, and they didn't have connectivity in the home or devices. The schools were providing devices. A lot of them were, giving a laptop, but the issue was that they didn't have anything to connect it to. And so we were hearing stories like right away of families that we have 9 children in the household, and they're all sharing a cell phone to complete the work. We were hearing stories of community members who were sitting in parking lots with their kids while they connected to Wi-Fi so that they can submit their schoolwork. And so we realized very quickly we needed to do something. And so we were able to use some funding we almost got initially, which was the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which is the CARES Act funding. We were able to, right in May of 2020, purchase 800 devices that we were able to distribute to families with school-aged children. And the best part about this project was they were working as hotspots. So if there were laptops that were provided by the school and there were several children in the household, they were able to use this as a hotspot.
So they were devices that were what type of devices were these?
These initial devices were like LG tablets,
Okay.
and they were used as a hotspot as well. So
Mhm.
they had unlimited data. They worked really, really well. So well, in fact, that we went
Yeah.
back several months later and used some more CARES Act funding to purchase 800 more to provide to our seniors. Because though the initial response was to the school age children, we were obviously, we were all new to what were the needs, and this wasn't just on the digital equity and inclusion side. This was everywhere. Like, what were the essential services that were needed? But we worked with the families with school age children first, but then directly after that, we realized that we had seniors at home, seniors who were being disconnected, shut away from their communities, where they go to church, where they go to shop, where they see their family. And so that was kind of our initial, or our second wind of where our focus was going to be, was on the seniors after that.
Understandably. Guidance and instruction is so important when it comes to setting people up with new tech. So, can you tell me how you approached the aspect? I mean, that's a lot of devices to get out, and then do people know how to use them? Like, what did you need to do to get everything set up for them?
I think back at this time as one of the most creative times in my work, in my career, mostly because I am the least techie person on my team. And so here I am. I got pulled into this team just because I have a ton of engagement experience, community outreach and engagement experience, but definitely I was also overwhelmed by the thought that, I understood what the problem was. I understood how we were going to provide solutions, but we were also in the middle of a pandemic. And so, just to take us back with the youth, we followed all the guidelines, 6 feet apart. We were just, showing them the device and then sending them home. With the seniors, it was a totally different experience where we still had to be even more careful about the distancing. We had to put a little bit more effort into giving them these devices because we were so concerned about either them not using them, that they would turn into paperweights, using them incorrectly, and not safely. So we had to put a lot of thought into it. And, a lot of them didn't have even emails that we were setting up in the very beginning. So we were like sitting 6 feet apart from a senior who doesn't hear well and like trying, to work through these things. And, we got very creative. But we did learn that there's the three tiers to digital inclusion, digital access, and digital equity is that, having access to, affordable connectivity, having devices like tablets and laptops, but also training is so important because we did have a lot of community members, these seniors that went home, and they were like, I have no clue, and put them aside. It wasn't till almost a year later that I was able to finally secure some funding to bring them back, and they were bringing them in the boxes that we gave them to them in.
Wow. They weren't raised on it like a lot of us younger people were. I'm going to call myself younger right now, but we weren't even raised on it, but we've learned. And, the children, I would think, would have a better handle of how to get online just because they've had some familiarity with it. When you talk about the kids not having the right devices or internet access in order to do their schoolwork, how important is digital access in terms of kids and their development? Do you have any stats about improved school performance or anything like this when kids have access to technology?
So, unfortunately, we haven't actually surveyed or have been able to connect with the schools to find out in our communities, these children, how having internet in their home has helped them improve. Though that is part of like a secondary post surveying, with us working with Marnie. Our plan will be in Cox, our plan will be to, do a post survey. How has, having the internet in your home improved your youth and their grades, connecting with your family? Has it helped, with the ease? Now you can online shop. We just kind of want to know how the impact has been, even personally. And so we plan to do that. We did recognize, though, that in a recent survey, over 1,000 of our community members have completed a pre-survey to receiving the internet. And over 66% realize that a student will do better, have a more positive opportunity to do better in school if they have internet in the home. And this is what our community members are sharing with us.
Sure, that makes total sense. When we talk about the seniors that you were working with, and based on age or lack of mobility, they often rely on technology for their telemedicine appointments. So, how do you help them get on board with this specific type of tech in order to help them so that they don't have to physically get out and go to the doctor?
Well, I have to tell two parts to this and a quick
Okay.
funny story. So our efforts to connect our seniors, there will be memories and things I learned, lessons learned from that time. But one of the things was we realized how important they were to even each other. So they live in a housing site, they go down for coffee, they meet and they chat, how important that was. So one of the things that we do monthly is a coffee chat. And I remember the very first coffee chat that I'm like, all right, we're going to do a virtual coffee chat. I'm going to teach them how to use Zoom because learning how to use Zoom will help them to do telemedicine. A lot of the doctors were using the Zoom platform. And so I tell this story a lot because it just really reminds me that as much as I think I know about community engagement and grassroots work, I still am surprised by things. But we brought them down. We had all of their coffees and their pastries ready to go. They would carry them back up. We helped them with these new tablets that we had provided to them. We helped them sign on to Zoom and told them to go back to their apartments. And we'd all get together and talk. So they all go back up to their apartments. And the very first thing I go to sit down, I've got them all signed in, and all I can see are foreheads.
Foreheads.
Like, all across the board, and I'm like, "Well," like, all the things that you learn. But I have to tell you, we had to take a very grassroots approach from the very beginning about, what kind of things we want. We have a lot of people that are new. We gave a lot of devices out. How are we going to prioritize what's important to help them with, and how can we do this? And I remember there's this 96-year-old woman who had said she didn't want a tablet. She didn't want to learn. It was too much. And as I was like, "Are you sure? I mean, there's lots of things you could do." She goes, "Like what?" I go, "Well, what do you like to do?" She goes, "I like to listen to gospel music." I go, "All right, let me show you how we can listen to gospel music on this." So I showed her how to go onto YouTube. And she was just thrilled, so excited that her son called when I was there and she was telling him about it, and he was excited for her. But I visited her multiple times and then eventually taught her how to join a Zoom call for her doctor. So as much as there was trust building and things happening, learning how to prioritize like what seniors were actually going to use these devices for, and the patience that was needed to do for all of this work that I was doing. But it's super rewarding. And I look back at not as a time that I learned a lot, but also a lot of great memories from that time.
I love that. My mom is a senior, so I help her with her tech-related challenges sometimes, and if she accomplishes something on her own, she said, "Are you proud of me?"
Oh, it's so
when she
cute.
does something.
So cute.
So, I know that it is rewarding when they can finally learn how to do that on their own. It's so
Yes.
exciting. So, IDIA, or the Institute of Digital Inclusion Acceleration, has set up 2 hives, which are digital equity centers. Can you tell us about those hives and the benefits that they provide?
Sure. I'm very excited about to share our hives. A year ago in December of 2023, and then just after that in March of 2024, we opened our 2 hives. So the hive at Aeroterra was somewhat of a pilot spot to see how it would go. It's a temporary spot as we build a permanent hive within the Edison East Lake community. Um, but there was this idea that there is such a need for people to have somewhere to go that feels comfortable, that they can ask questions and not feel like they're stupid if they had a bad question around technology. I know even for myself and for your mom, my mom, places that would be welcoming to them, I think are so important. And so the hives, the centers that we have opened in partnership with IDEA have really supported both our Phoenix Housing Connect program, our residents, and also the surrounding communities. And so not only are these spaces open to our housing residents, but also anyone in the community. And so we're always looking for creative ways to talk about what the Hive provides. It's not just a center. It's open 5 days a week. It's not just a center that provides, one-on-one support, though it does with digital navigators. It's a super comfortable environment where it almost feels like a living room when you walk in. It doesn't feel like that kind of stale, like computer lab. And you can sit down, you can either bring your own device in, or you can work on one of their devices, and someone will sit with them one on one and show them anything you want to know. They say they can help with anything that has a screen. But I always like to say that, I think people don't even know half the time what they could learn in a space like that. I think sometimes it just takes visiting that type of, center and start, talking about what your needs are. And that's when someone can look into what they're able to provide for assistance. And we also do programming there for seniors. I know they recently did a class on how to connect to a telehealth appointment. But they also do a lot of programming for youth, which has been one of our goals through the housing department, was to bring in more youth programming around technology. We really believe that youth having an opportunity to learn, to play early in life will kind of inspire them, hopefully for their future. I mean, they are the future of our tech jobs. So we want them to feel comfortable, be engaged, and want to learn more.
Let's get some more STEM students out there. Do you know how many people use these centers, these hives?
Since they've opened, we've had hundreds of visitors, and that's everyone from our residents who live directly in this area. We've also welcomed other organizations. We've had our senior centers bust over. So a couple of our senior City of Phoenix housing senior centers have been bust over. So we're really just any opportunity we can to get people in the door, we do. They also have a mobile hive now. So the mobile hive has visited several of our community events that we host in these communities. So it's really cool to have the hive, roll up and be able to pull out all their tech stuff, the spears or sparrows, whatever the kids like. And everybody's super engaged, everyone from kids to adults. But as I said, they've been a huge part of and support of our programs. Currently the Aeroterra Hive is assisting with helping with the Cox signup. So they provide a lot of support to our program. They're also a place that has hired two of our residents as well. So two of our young ladies in our community have jobs now at the hives, which is really cool that they've been able to support their community where they're from, working there.
That's exciting. Are the centers located close to affordable housing?
Yes. So, what's great about the two centers, the Aeroterra Hive, which is located in the Edison East Lake community around 16th Street and Van Buren, they have several affordable housing sites around them. And so does the C-Tech, the Hive at C-Tech. It also almost is within a affordable housing site. They are City of Phoenix community centers, and the two hives are located within a mile of 10 of our affordable housing sites.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm glad to see that type of access. So, Marnie, I'm curious, what were some of the challenges Courtney brought to you initially when implementing the program?
Oh, wow. So initially, I think the first challenge that I can think of is obviously the city, from a legal perspective, had to protect themselves as we entered these agreements. So the legal back and forth was over a year, I believe. But everybody was very committed to working with each other. Also, the financial challenge, there's limited funds. Courtney's been amazing going out and getting grants and finding different donors to help fund the programs that she's launched. But we had to make those funds, we had to fit those funds into what we were able to do. Also, a few of the buildings had some wiring challenges, so that was another thing we needed to overcome. But
How did you
I'm
deal with those?
so we needed to send our construction team and field services. They were great. They actually went out and did site surveys, and we silently celebrated whenever they came back and said, "This is good. The wiring here is good." A few places did need some rewire jobs, and I mean, Courtney's incredible. She's just tireless out there getting funds to rewire, and it's just a partnership. We do the best that we can do to save them money, but Courtney has borne the brunt of it. She's been out there hustling for dollars for her communities.
And I know there can be language barrier challenges as well. How do you approach that when that rises?
From a Cox perspective, we do have a wonderful gentleman named Marcos who is assigned as the account manager to support the launches at all of the communities, and he is bilingual. So he's Spanish speaking, and that's been very helpful. We if it's not Spanish, we I think Courtney's actually has a few people within her organization that speak different languages, and it's just a partnership. We figure out how to make it work.
And I know that sometimes, especially in affordable communities where people are dealing with so many challenges on a daily basis, there can be mistrust when new things come in. And how do you tackle an obstacle like that?
Yes, Courtney and we've had a lot of discussions lately. There's a lot of things going on in our world right now. And so a lot of these people feel like perhaps the government is spying on them. So they don't want to join these programs. Um, I think we just have conversations on a one-on-one basis. We've told Courtney, if you need us to go back out in force again, the Cole Cox team, we make sure we're branded so they know we are not the government. We are Cox Communications. We are truly we're partnered with the city of Phoenix to help you. And it's just one at a time. And I think it's working well.
And then, Courtney, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. It's interesting because around that same question, I was actually out with Marcos yesterday. Because the way that this program's set up, we are activating every single unit at an apartment complex. So, though we aren't saying that they have to have Cox because they can choose not to have Cox, they can have cellular or they can have other providers. But if they want to have Cox, that's part of our program. And we had a gentleman at one of our senior sites who was really uncomfortable, worried about, the government looking at what he was doing. And I was able to meet with Marcos yesterday, who came out to the site, and we just had a conversation with him about what this program really is, and really ensured this resident that we're here. The city is actually just the bill payer here, and the Cox is providing the service, and through our us working together and trust building with this resident, he was good to sign up for his Cox internet. So I mean, every single site we go to, we think we know what to expect. And I almost always have some type of challenge. Every site is different. Our communities are different and their needs. It's been very interesting too. A lot of our sites host refugees, and so there's been lots of language barriers to the point where I'll show up at one of the sites and the property management will tell me that 90% of her site is a refugee population. And I'm thinking, well, we're going to do this today. So, luckily, one of the great things about working with Cox is as we've assisted in calling the community cares line, this is specifically for the bulk service that our community members are receiving. There has been times where Cox has said, since you're there with a resident who speaks, this language, Russian, let me go ahead and put a Russian translator on for you. And several times they've done that to ensure that I'm not speaking for the resident who's sitting there with me, that they have an opportunity to ensure that they're getting what they need out of their plan.
So, Marnie, I know you do a lot of work behind the scenes, but can you tell our listeners what it's like to see the effects of this type of program in real life?
Absolutely. Yeah, you read a lot about affordable housing and digital inequity. And I really thought I understood what it meant. I went to the very first launch when we launched the first property, and I think it was life changing. There were individuals there, parents who were in tears because their child was going to have internet for the very first time. And it was so moving. I think that I would welcome anybody listening to, join us for one of these launches because it puts a human face on what we're doing here and what Courtney has been so passionately doing.
It truly does, because for so many people, it's been out of reach. They couldn't afford it, yet they needed it so badly. I am glad that you have gotten to witness that, and maybe you'll have to let me know next time you guys have a launch so I can come participate too. And Courtney, do you have any success stories from the program that you'd like to share?
I love getting out and talking to our community members. I do a lot of engagement in the communities that we're serving now. So the first thing I always want to talk about is, did they get set up with their internet? Like, how is it working for them? And I love the stories of, I was able to complete my certificate because I was able to do it online. I had another community member who was just sharing that she had injured her back doing warehouse work. And so her goal has been set for this next year to put herself through some online school so that she could get a desk job where, she could work from home or work from an office where she doesn't have to be, up on her feet all day long. And she was just so grateful because she says having internet in the home, she doesn't have to go somewhere and try to connect. And if there's poor connection, be missing out on her class and her training. And so, just even little stories like that to us, I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, it's life changing to them.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
substantial.
it really is. I even think back, one of the, like I said, I'm not the most techie person, and I don't know that I had 100% buy-in when I was pulled into this program. I thought, all right, it's the pandemic. I'm in community engagement. Who am I going to engage the next, I'm going to need to do this. So I stepped into this role, and it literally took, I had a, a single mom and her son. Her son was 19 years old, trying to graduate school. He had tried multiple times to get through school his senior year, and he was back to finish. And then the pandemic, it happened in spring. So this would be graduation time for those that were seniors. And I remember she had reached out to me on my phone and said, can I get one of those tablets for my son? He's 19 years old, and I know that, it was school age children under 18, but he's almost graduated. Is there any way? And so I remember I got the approvals and everything and took it to her. She reached out to me on like May 15th and was like, my son graduated because he was able to finish his school. And I was thinking, man, like, can you imagine, like, you're back in school, you're going to finish it up, and like the pandemic, what if he wouldn't have, And so he was one of the kids that was going to the local store and connecting to their Wi-Fi in the parking lot. And I'm just out here doing, I've always felt like really good work. I feel like in the housing department in general, I get to do really good things that make, the difference in people's lives. But this passion of mine for the digital access and community members having access to connectivity, devices, training has become something that I'm very passionate about because I have seen over the last 5 years how it's positively impacted people personally, story by story. So I feel very grateful to do this work.
Do you cry a lot in your job? Because that made
Uh,
me want to cry.
I think I am just emotional anyways. And so I
Mhm.
actually run a nonprofit too. I run a dog rescue. So if you think about
Oh,
all the ways that you could love what you do. I love what I do, whether I'm home working on that or whether I'm at work. I just feel like I am so lucky to do this work. So,
well, and I don't know if you can say you're not very techy anymore because you had to teach all these people. So hopefully you taught yourself too, and you've learned a
right.
few new
Well,
tricks.
again, I'm impressed that I was able to figure out how to plug in this microphone today. And I was telling my AmeriCorps today, sometimes I get nervous unplugging things that I'm not gonna be able to plug them back in right. And he's like, you got this. I was like, all right, I got this.
You've got
Yeah,
this.
I'm the right person to be helping people because I realize I know what it feels like to just have nerves around connectivity, like have nerves
Right.
around something's not going to work for me when, it's going to work for everyone else. So I think I'm the right person to be there helping them.
Well, and I'm a stats girl. Are there any statistics you can share that are maybe before and after stats about how many people have been impacted by the program, or do you have that information yet? It's still too early?
So I think we're going to find out a lot more after the final rollout of our Cox program. Um, you know, I we've connected 3,500 residents with a device with internet. We're heading into 3,700 um, units that are going to be connected. Hopefully more when we find some funding. Training. I have something as simple as 90% of the seniors who went through a 8-week training class felt comfortable turning on their device and getting online. So all of these efforts make a difference, and I hope to know much more in the next year as we kind of focus on every element because now we have the connectivity, the the training and the support through the hives and the devices. So we're really working. I feel like what we're doing in the city of Phoenix is it's innovative, trailblazing, and so I feel like I'm very excited to see where we go in the next couple years. We've really done a lot in the last 5.
Are there any aspects that are most important with the program going forward in terms of keeping it going?
So I think, even though right now we're currently paying for internet that's going to be prepaid for the next 3 years. So our folks will have internet through Cox until the end of 2027, early 2028. But right now, we're already focusing on what happens after that. Of course, you never want to provide a service that will be taken away. I look at the Affordable Connectivity Program, and we were getting ready to launch this program with Cox when the Affordable Connectivity Program was ending. Nobody knew what to do. They're like, what do we do? We just signed up for internet and we loved having internet. And so I felt like our program came at the right time. But yeah, I think continuing to look at where do we have opportunity to build partnerships. T-Mobile's been great. Cox has been wonderful, so accommodating working with us. And it's also about, you're working with the city. So as Marnie was kind of sharing earlier, there's just processes, things that take a little bit longer with the
A lot of red
city.
tape.
There's red tape. But, it's we're serving Arizona, we're serving Phoenix. And so we appreciate when as Cox has gone above and beyond. I know that, as we reached a new challenge, I have reached out to this team and we've just figured it out together. So, you know, it's been really great. But what does it look like for the future? I think we're going to continue to look for funding. We're going to continue to look for devices and partnerships that will continue to support this program.
Well, and with affordable housing, I know you've talked about funding, but can you tell us more about how programs like yours are funded? And besides like the ACP beyond that, when you're looking in other places, and what is the potential of possible cuts in government funding? Like, what is that doing and how's it impacting you?
So, up until this point, we have almost 100% been funded in this program by federal funding. So, as I kind of shared earlier, the CARES Act funding provided our initial tablets that we distributed. We used the Community Development Block Fund grant funding that has also provided more devices. We're using ARPA funding currently.
What is ARPA again for our audience?
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan Act.
Okay.
We're using ARPA funding currently for the Cox program. So $8 million has been used in federal funding for our program over the last 5 years. So, we never want to take for granted when we do get funding. We're looking into not just federal funding, there's other funding opportunities that we may go after to support this. We're also looking at different things, operational costs of our sites, subsidized programs. In the end, I don't know what the next, couple years look like for the type of funding that will be available, but we're really determined to figure out how to sustain this program because sustainability is the most important thing, right? We want to make sure that we are able to provide in some way, keep this program going because we know how important it is.
Well, Marnie, I know you've mentioned that people have reached out to you about this trailblazing work that Courtney has been doing. What stands out to you about what she does so well in her approach with all of it?
So Courtney, she's not just talking the talk, she's walking the walk. She really truly cares about the people in her community that she's working with. I have had several other cities reach out and just ask high-level questions because they would like to replicate what she's doing. I think that the city of Phoenix is extremely lucky to have Courtney. If you can't tell, she is so hands-on. It's not glamorous, she's not being flown around in private jets and wined and dined. It isn't like that. She is feet on the street and she just really cares. I sincerely hope that some other cities around the United States learn from her and replicate this program because it's groundbreaking work.
So, cities, if you're listening, Courtney, for folks across the country who may be looking to implement similar programs to yours, What are some lessons that you learned along the way that might be helpful for them to know?
So, well, one thing I want to share is that the city of Phoenix is a Connect Home USA community. And so, what that is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's a HUD program. And what they're focused on is connectivity, devices, training, resources. So all the things I'm kind of talking about today, but we've been a partner of Connect Home for since 2017, and they have really provided our program with a lot of support over the years, a lot of really great information. But as a city, we've been able to connect with other cities and do a lot of sharing, which I think is so important to kind of hear what we're all doing. And, especially for businesses like Cox who have supported this program, it's important that, because you guys are national, we want others to know that working with Cox has been great because, we'd love that to be replicated.
And to help people who want to set up similar programs, where do you even begin? Like, what are the key first steps to keep in mind?
Well, one, I've looked at this as a program that we're all passionate about it in this department. We know that we're making a difference, but really understanding that this program, you have to be innovative in your thinking and you have to be very flexible. I think that's one of the hardest things is sometimes back to like the policies and procedures, we have to know that sometimes we're going to go into a new site or a new program and know that even though things work this way when we were distributing tablets, didn't work the same when we were distributing the internet. Like, I think being flexible is really, really important. And I am always willing to be a resource. I joined this program from a mentor, one of my City of Phoenix mentors. Her name was Mindy Davis. She had this program. She made sure that Phoenix was connected with Connect Home USA and getting the resources they were providing. But it was through her passion for this work that I was able to come into this program. And we are always more than willing to share, to teach, to listen to, what other communities are facing, but also to advise in any way that, things that have worked for us and where we've had any type of difficulties or lessons learned, I'd be always willing to share.
Yeah, because it really does take a tribe to serve up this type of assistance and really help the affordable housing market. So, cheers to you both for everything that you've been doing. And I hate it because I could just keep talking to both of you forever, but our time is kind of coming to an end. So to wrap things up here today, I wanted to give you both the opportunity to leave the audience with some parting advice. So, what is some of the most important stuff that you want them to walk away with? Like one thing that they can take with them from our conversation here today. And Marnie, how about you start us off?
Oh gosh, I get to start.
You
Uh,
do.
I think communication is key when you get started on a program that maybe you haven't you haven't participated in before. Courtney and I have biweekly meetings just to talk about what's working, what isn't working, what does she need, and it's been a learning experience the entire way. So I think as the company providing it, I do think that you need to keep the lines of communication open and continue to talk to each other and find out, where the gaps are, because I feel like if we could replicate this again, if we could start from the beginning again, it would be smooth sailing. Courtney and I have had to travel this path the first time together.
Well, as with any good relationship, communication is always key. So that makes great sense to me. And Courtney, I'll give you the final word. What would you like for people to remember here today?
If you don't mind, I'm just going to say a quick response to Marnie. Thank
Yeah.
you and your team for always listening to the challenges that we were facing, but also allowing me to advocate for my residents and this program because this benefits them. And I want to make sure that they're always in the center of what we're doing and how we're working through this. And you guys have allowed us to do that. So thank you. For me, this is kind of an old cliche thing, but having access and connectivity in the home is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. And I think, advocating for this program the last couple of years, it's not always easy when you look at funding cuts, when you look, these are the types of programs that could get cut. But what I want to say in the end is I have always made sure to tell stories to make to connect people to the work that we're doing, like Marnie was sharing earlier. And I think all the way from telling the feedback and the stories that I hear from our community members and how these programs benefit them, I make sure that my direct leadership and then their leadership knows about the impacts of our programs, because I always want those that can make decisions. I want them to feel comfortable talking about my program. I want them to know that they have the stories that I have shared with them to use as, inspiration for people who are looking to fund, to support our programs. Even to the end, my director loves to tell the story of my 96-year-old senior that I taught how to not only connect to her sermons on YouTube, but also to do the telehealth appointments too. So he loves to tell that story. I love to hear him tell that story because I know that I've made sure that he knows how important this program is. So
everything that you're doing is so important and so valuable, and I know it's making a huge difference. So hats off to both of you. Thank you so much for sharing with everyone today. I'm a little goosebumpy because it feels like we're talking about purpose here, and you guys are fulfilling a lot of purpose. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for letting me share. And thank you, Marnie.
Thank you, Valerie and Courtney.
Thanks again to Courtney and Marnie for being on the show today and sharing so much important information. Digital equity is important for us all, to help our kids build a strong future, to help our seniors get the care they need, and for everyone in between. To our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, please remember to like, follow, subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. I'm Valerie Sargent, and this has been Open Door, brought to you by Cox Communities. We're in the top 1% of business podcasts for a reason. Subscribe now so you never miss a moment.